It's starting to get close to impossible for Huawei to make any money in the US. Washington's implementing a new ban on the federal government that prevents it from buying any hardware or services from the Chinese tech giant.
The administration has a strong commitment to defending our nation from foreign adversaries and will fully comply with Congress on the implementation of the prohibition of Chinese telecom and video surveillance equipment, including Huawei equipment.
The ban covers 4 other Chinese firms and is part of a broader defense law that took effect last year. It's separate from a Commerce Department order forbidding U.S. exports to Huawei and other Chinese firms. Washington's action is the latest in its trade war with China, which the U.S. says it's winning.
China's slashing its prices. That's killing their profits in their companies. Production and supply chains are moving out of China. We have elasticity of demand. Our importers can shop elsewhere outside of China. That's hurting China. The economic burden is falling vastly more on them than us.
So far, though, China seems to be doing fine. Exports by the world's second-largest economy rose 3.3% in July. Economists had expected a 1% drop due to a hike in U.S. tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods in June.
China's economy has shown great resilience and confidence. In the first 7 months, China's foreign trade continued to grow steadily.
China says it's seeing growing demand from Asian and African nations taking part in Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, and that's making up for losses in the U.S. But from September the 1st, nearly all Chinese exports to the U.S. will be subject to tariffs. Washington hopes that added pressure will push both sides closer to a deal. Paolo Montesillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to Jeffrey Tucker, Editorial Director of the American Institute for Economic Research. He joins us from Great Barrington in Massachusetts. Good to have you back on the program, Jeffrey. Now, obviously, the Trump administration has justified this crackdown on Huawei and now other Chinese tech firms by saying that they pose a security risk to America. How well-founded is that fear?
I don't believe it's well-founded at all. Of course, there's every reason to be concerned about security of the entire digital world, but the U.S. is a main offender of that. Huawei wants to sell products. I mean, China has been turning to free enterprise and wants to find useful technologies for the world. And I see this, Oscar, as being nothing other than an excuse for Trump to continue to drum up his Cold War that's turning into a currency war, growing into a trade war. Now economists are openly talking about trade war, whereas they weren't a month ago. And as you know, I've been predicting this for 3 years because even though Donald Trump promised the art of the deal, the emphasis was supposed to be on the deal. He doesn't want a deal. He wants to dismantle the world trading order that's brought prosperity and growth to the world economy for the last 70 years. I mean, he's flipped the switch on what began in 1948, and he's done it pretty much alone. And I must say, if I may, that clip that you ran of my friend Larry Kudlow saying obviously completely false things is a tremendous embarrassment. He absolutely knows better. He used to be a dedicated free trader, and now he's willing to go on international television saying completely false things such as this is only hurting China and not hurting the U.S. The U.S. is suffering. We've lost all of our export markets. Our supply chains are completely disrupted. And now we're going to be denied the next generation of digital technology, all because of a completely crazy mercantilist nationalist strategy to bring back a world that is long gone. So I'm sorry that Larry has joined his voice to this very dangerous mercantilist campaign.
Well, yes, as you say, Larry Kudlow there says that China is losing more than the US, but not according to the latest export figures out of China, showing that, in fact, they're shipping more goods out of the country. What do you make of that? Is this China adapting to the new normal?
You are exactly right to say that. China is in for the long haul. They figured Trump out. And the reason they figured it out is they keep going into these trade negotiations and wanting to strike a deal. This has been going on now for a year and a half. And every time the Trump administration says, we'll make any deal you want so long as you continue to accept these tariffs. The U.S. will not budge on these tariffs because Trump is making the Trump administration is raising a lot of money, not from China, but from Americans. It's basically a tax on American producers and consumers. And he believes in tariffs. And he's said this many times. He's a tariff man. So he will not budge on the tariffs. Which makes China realize, all right, we've got to have some other markets. And so the TPP, which the U.S. pulled out of, is now going full steam ahead. And China is, if anything, yes, there's been a temporary weakening because of the disruption here, but China is full on ready to take on this trade war. And they will not win it, but they are definitely going to prevail. And the damage to the U.S. economy is, Oscar, so severe at this point. And it's not showing up in things like unemployment or even GDP yet, although the second quarter GDP was very weak. But you look at the underlying data, and it's starting to look really scary. The Trump administration knows this, which is why it's blaming the Federal Reserve and wanting the Fed to crank up their printing presses to cover up for the U.S. economic weakness that's caused by this trade war. The whole situation is getting utterly absurd.
It sure is. Let's see what happens when the two sides are due to meet in September for more negotiations. Jeffrey Tucker in Great Barrington, thank you again for your time.